Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Gavin. There are a lot of people out there searching YouTube for more information on Robert Durst, and I don't feel like I'm going too far out on a limb when I say it's probably because he's testifying at his own murder trial right now. So what I thought I'd do is make a little video explaining what got Robert Durst to this point, and I'm going to try to do it in less than 5 minutes. Probably not going to succeed, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Robert Durst is a guy who was born into a very wealthy family. And I mean really wealthy. It's estimated that the family's net worth is north of $8 billion. So yeah, like really wealthy. In 2003, Robert Durst was diagnosed by a psychiatrist as having Asperger's syndrome, which is a condition in which the person who has it has a very difficult time in social interaction. And this was used by a defense team that he hired in a previous murder trial. But let's not get into that quite yet. In 1971, Durst met and fell in love with a medical student named Kathie McCormack. I'm sure he was very impressive. He rolled out the red carpet, he came from a nice family, he was well off. They were married in 73. Moving quickly here, by 1982, things aren't going so well in their marriage. In fact, they're in the middle of a very ugly, messy divorce. She's asking for payment, he's saying no way, and in the middle of all that, she disappears. She falls off the face of the earth. Durst claims that the last time he saw her was when he dropped her off at the train station. But nobody really bought that. In fact, 3 weeks earlier, friends had seen her with bruises all over her face, claiming that her husband had beat her. She never pressed charges, and Durst was never arrested either for spousal abuse or for her murder because it was still a missing persons case. 8 years after her disappearance, Durst divorced Kathie McCormack, claiming spousal abandonment. But in 2016, the McCormack family had her declared legally dead. They then sued Robert Durst for $100 million, claiming wrongful death. But that suit didn't go anywhere. In fact, Robert Durst was never held accountable for Kathie McCormack's death or disappearance, though in May of 2021, the district attorney said that her death had been reclassified as a homicide and would be reinvestigated. That brings us to Susan Berman. She was a longtime friend of Durst's and was actually his alibi when his wife went missing. On Christmas Eve of 2000, her body was found murdered execution style in her Los Angeles area home. When police began to investigate, they discovered that Durst was in the area at the time of her death and that prior to her death, he had made 2 payments totaling $50,000 to Berman. When they interviewed him, he admitted to all of those things, but then declined to comment further. He then went into hiding in Galveston, Texas, under an assumed name. Then, and man, there are a lot of thens in this story. Okay, then on October 9th, 2001, Durst was arrested in Galveston, Texas, but his arrest had nothing to do with Kathie McCormack nor Susan Berman. Instead, there had been dismembered body parts found floating in Galveston Bay, and those body parts belonged to a man named Morris Black, Durst's neighbor. Durst was released on a $300,000 bail the following day. He was scheduled to reappear on October 16th, but he failed to appear, so a warrant was issued for his arrest. They went to arrest him, couldn't find him. The following month, he was found inside a Wegmans supermarket in Bethlehem, PA. He had been trying to shoplift Band-Aids, a newspaper, and a chicken salad sandwich. He had $500 in his pocket when he was caught. And then when they searched the rental car, he had another $37,000 there. Also in the rental car was a stash of weed, 2 more guns, and Mr. Black's driver's license. In 2003, Robert Durst was tried for the murder of Morris Black. It was in this trial that he was diagnosed as having Asperger's syndrome. The jury acquitted him even after he confessed to using a paring knife, 2 saws, and an axe to dismember Black's body, apparently after an accidental shooting. He did plead guilty to 2 counts of bail jumping and 1 count of evidence tampering. This reminds me, in many states here in the US, it's still not a felony to conceal the death of another person. For example, in New York State, up until 2015, it was still a misdemeanor to improperly dispose of a human corpse. That change was made in the wake of the death of Amanda Lynn Winkowski, who is the subject of a lot of my videos. I've gone really deep into her case. I'll leave a link to her playlist. I suggest you check it out. Okay, getting back to Robert Durst. So he's acquitted of the murder charge, but ends up serving some time for the bail jumping and the evidence tampering. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens, but in March of 2006, he is released from jail. Then, again, another one of those thens, in 2015, HBO released a documentary series titled The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst. And in that documentary, they uncovered a lot of circumstantial evidence that piqued the interest of investigators and prosecutors who ultimately filed murder charges in the death of Susan Berman, which brings us to where we are today. Obviously, I've skipped over quite a bit, but those are the highlights in the life and crazy times of one Robert Durst. Now, go forth and search on YouTube for all the content you want on Robert Durst. There's a ton of it, including video of him testifying at his own murder trial, the trial of Susan Berman. Now, when you ultimately find that video, and I know you will, when you watch him, if you say to yourself, look at that poor little old guy, I want you to remember this. We know that he killed and dismembered Morris Black, and that there's a library of evidence, mounds and mounds of it, that point to him murdering both Kathie McCormack and Susan Berman. Now, this video is something that is very different from my channel. Normally, I go into very deep dive, multi-part episodes on cases that you probably haven't heard before. So if that is kind of your deal, I invite you to check out my channel and subscribe if you think I've earned it. And with that, I will bid you adieu. I hope to see you the next time. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below.